We have Hofstra University's Distinguished Professor of Business, Dr. Joel Evans, on board. He not only teaches a graduate course on product innovation, but he has the critical information for helping you achieve liftoff for your product or service launch. It's the focus of today's In the Spotlight. Okay, thanks for joining us today, Dr. Evans.
My pleasure.
All right, so today we want to talk about launching a new product or service. Would you say that it's easier or harder to launch something like that in today's world?
I think if one is prepared to go online, it's much simpler than it was before. The problem is, of course, all the clutter and getting people to your site. In terms of getting into individual stores, it's probably about the same. What some people don't realize is companies like Walmart and Costco, if you get a regional approval, they could try out a product in the store. Their managers are empowered. So there are more opportunities there than people believe. But I think the problem is that there are so many hundreds of thousands of products that are introduced in the US each year, including about 50,000 that will be directly going into supermarkets that are either completely new or new versions of products, that it becomes very hard to stand out, and it gets very hard to get the reseller to want to carry your product unless they believe it's really different.
So let's say I am one of these folks who came out with this new product out on Long Island specifically. What must I do so that I can get in there?
Before they get in there, I think the first thing that we have to do is that our expectations have to be realistic. We're not selling $20 million the first 3 months. It's not going to happen. So I think the best route to go is to try to get into neighborhood types of stores who are looking for their own edge, rather than trying to get into the Walmart or Costco, even though you may have a chance there, is to go in and talk to companies where they are looking for their own thing that's distinctive, and be willing to do something that inventors hate, which is consignment, rather than being able to sell it up front, having faith in what you're doing and letting it go on consignment, and you get paid after it's sold.
How do I make sure that I thought this through so that when I get lucky and one of these neighborhood stores says, you know what, sold, I would like to purchase X number of products on a consistent basis, that I'll be able to deliver?
Besides being realistic in expectations, one has to be prepared financially. And what I like to say is, from the time you come up with the idea until you have 1 year of sales, you need to have enough money to fund yourself. So again, I think people are not only unrealistic in terms of the amount of sales, but they're unrealistic in terms of what it's going to cost them. And I think you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared to advertise. You have to be prepared to line up a supplier who's going to want to get a contract for a certain minimum amount. So you have to make a commitment. You have to not view this as a hobby or a sideline. If you're serious about it, you have to treat it accordingly.
Difference between a product and a service launch?
A service launch would be something like a service that you would do at Jiffy Lube, where you came up with some different way for them to do a lube or an oil change. And I think that one is probably harder in the offline world and easier in the online world. If you were selling, for example, consulting services or a newsletter, that you'd be able to do online pretty readily, and your cost structure would be relatively low. The difference between goods and services is that services may be much easier to launch for a small company, but you better be different.
On Long Island, do you have any figures or interesting stats on new services or products and what the marketplace requires?
If you want to consider restaurants as services, because you're not physically buying the food, you're paying mostly for the experience, Long Island has had a tremendous boom in terms of the amount of eating places. There's absolutely an opportunity there if you're dealing in fresh quality stuff and you specialize. Fruit and vegetable stores do very well. Butchers have started to make a comeback. People are interested in quality products, and they're interested in quality beyond what they can get in supermarkets.
But I think a lot of small business owners or entrepreneurs say, well, I've got something that's different, or my product is better than the others. How do you realistically know if you've got A, something unique, B, something different, and something that you can really sell?
You got to go online. And you've got to type in some keywords that are similar to what you want to do, and you've got to actually be sure that no one else is doing it. Then you have to be, then assuming that it isn't done, you have to be able to demonstrate that there is a demand for what you want.
Most important takeaway.
The most important takeaway is to be realistic, to commit to the new product, and to recognize that you're not going to get rich the second you open up. You've got to be realistic. But having said that, all the icons that we have today, Facebook, Netflix, Microsoft, they all started in either somebody's garage or somebody's dorm room with no money, and they were able, through perseverance and smarts, to be able to create multi-billion-dollar empires, and that is still a possibility.
Sounds good. We're energized. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.